The secret strength of Jesus. Why he never broke down. Have you ever reached a breaking point? Not just stress, not just exhaustion. I mean the kind of moment when your soul feels like it's cracking under the weight of life. When your prayers are silent, your hope is bleeding, and you wonder if you're going to make it through the next hour, let alone the next day. Now stop and consider this. Jesus walked the earth, fully human. He got tired. He got hungry. He cried. He was betrayed, rejected, falsely accused, tortured, humiliated, abandoned, crucified. And yet he never broke down. He never caved in, never lashed out in sin, never collapsed into bitterness, never ran away from the cross. Not how? Because Jesus had something most of us forget. A secret strength. And it wasn't superhuman invincibility. It wasn't cold detachment. It wasn't pride or stubborn willpower. It was something deeper, invisible, unshakable. And the most astonishing part, that same strength is available to you. Right now, someone listening to this feels like they're at the edge. You're weary, you're wounded, you're worn down. Maybe you're hiding it well. Maybe no one knows. But deep inside, you're asking the question, how do I keep going without falling apart? Friend, you're not alone, and you're not without help. In this message, we're going to uncover the real reason Jesus never broke through betrayal, through Gethsemane, through the cross, and how his strength can become yours. Not just in theory, but in every storm, every burden, every silent night where you feel like giving up. If you've ever cried out, "God, I can't do this anymore," then stay with me. Because the one who stood when everything tried to break him is standing with you now. Let's discover the secret strength of Jesus. Part 1. He was rooted in his identity. What would happen if your entire reputation was attacked, your friends abandoned you, and your future looked like a slow walk toward death? And yet you never questioned who you were. That's exactly how Jesus lived. From the very beginning of his public ministry, the Father declared it clearly and unshakably. "This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased." Matthew 3:17. No miracles had been done yet, no sermons preached, no crowds fed, no demons cast out. And still he was already loved, fully known, fully affirmed. That's the foundation Jesus stood on. He wasn't working for identity. He was working from identity. Let that sink in. Jesus wasn't striving to prove himself. He wasn't performing for acceptance. He knew who he was. He never forgot it, even when everyone else around him did. That's why he didn't break. Because when you know who you are in the eyes of God, the rejection of people doesn't destroy you. When your identity is rooted in heaven, the storms of earth can't uproot you. But the enemy always attacks identity first. Look at what Satan said in the wilderness. "If you are the Son of God," Matthew 4:3-4-6. He didn't begin by attacking Jesus' power. He didn't go after his miracles or parables. He questioned the most foundational thing. Who are you really? And it's the same with you. You'll never stand strong in life if you're unsure of who you are in God. If your identity is based on people's opinions, success, beauty, performance, or even ministry, you'll live like a leaf in the wind. But Jesus wasn't like that. He wasn't shaken by rejection in his hometown. He wasn't flattered by praise or crushed by criticism. Whether he was surrounded by thousands or praying alone in the mountains, he was the Son of God. Oh, even when Peter denied him, even when the crowds shouted, "Crucify him," even when the sky went black on the cross, Jesus never once questioned the voice he heard at his baptism. And that identity is available to you too. The Bible says, "See what great love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God, and that is what we are." 1 John 3:1. Not just when we behave, not just when we feel spiritual, not just when life is going well, but always. You are not an orphan in the eyes of heaven. You're not a mistake barely tolerated by God. You are a beloved son, a precious daughter, chosen, called, claimed. That's why Jesus didn't crumble when people misunderstood him, because his worth wasn't based on being understood. He didn't melt down when crowds abandoned him, because he was never performing for their approval. He didn't spiral when Judas betrayed him, because his foundation wasn't human loyalty, it was divine love. Friend, what about you? Where do you find your identity? Is it in your job title, your relationship status, your performance, your past, your ability to hold it all together? Because if it's in anything other than who God says you are, you'll always be one crisis away from collapse. But when you're rooted in the truth that you are fully loved, fully seen, fully known, and fully chosen, you can walk through fire and not be burned. You don't need the crowd to clap. You don't need the world to approve. You just need the Father's voice to anchor your soul. And He's already spoken. He said it over Jesus. And because of Christ, He now says it over you. This is my beloved child, and I am pleased with them. That's how Jesus stood unshaken. And that's how you will too. Part 2. He knew why he was sent. What keeps a person going when everything is falling apart? One word: purpose. Jesus didn't live randomly. He didn't wander through life hoping to find meaning. He knew why he was here. From the very beginning, his steps were directed by a divine mission. Even as a child, he stunned his parents by saying, "Did you not know that I must be about my Father's business?" Luke 2:49. 12 years old. And already his life had a focus most adults never find. That clarity followed him everywhere. When crowds gathered, when enemies plotted, when demons screamed, he wasn't swayed. His life was not reactionary. It was intentional. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. Luke 19:10. Not to impress the religious, not to become a political hero, not to gain applause or security. He came to save the lost, period. And because his eyes were fixed on his mission, he didn't flinch when pain came. He didn't get derailed by distractions. Even when the cross was looming, he didn't. In fact, he said this, "Now my soul is troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour. No, it was for this very reason I came to this hour." John 12:27. Do you see that? He didn't like the suffering, but he embraced it, because he knew his purpose wasn't comfort, it was redemption, and that purpose gave him the strength to endure what would have crushed any other man. Here's the truth. When you don't know your why, your how becomes unbearable. But when your why is clear, even the hardest how can't stop you. Jesus was never confused about his why. That's why he could walk straight into Gethsemane, sweating drops of blood, and still say, "Not my will, but yours be done." Luke 22:42. That's why he could face a betrayal kiss from Judas without rage. That's why he didn't call down angels when he was mocked and flogged. That's why he didn't curse those who drove the nails into his hands. He knew what he was doing, and he knew who he was doing it for. That's why he didn't break. Because the cross wasn't a surprise to him. It wasn't an interruption. It was the mission. Friend, what about you? Have you ever felt like giving up because you forgot what you were living for? So many of us drift through life without a clear purpose. We chase comfort, applause, success, survival. But deep down we know none of those things are enough to keep us steady in the storm. You need a mission greater than yourself. And if you follow Jesus, you have one. To love God with all your heart. To love people like He loves you. To build His kingdom, not your own. To live in a way that eternity remembers. You were born to live for something bigger than pain. And that bigger purpose gives you the power to endure pain. Just like Jesus did. Let this sink in. Jesus didn't break because He didn't live for Himself. He lived for the glory of God and the salvation of others. That kind of mission makes a soul bulletproof. It doesn't mean He didn't feel. It doesn't mean it didn't hurt, but it means his strength didn't come from how he felt. It came from knowing why he came. You and I will face betrayal, misunderstanding, delay, suffering, loneliness. But if we live for the same mission that Jesus did, we won't crumble under the weight of it. We'll rise with a strength the world can't explain. So let me ask you plainly, are you just surviving life, or are you living on mission? When your purpose is clear, your steps become steady, even when the road gets rough. Jesus shows us how. Know your purpose, live your purpose, finish your purpose, and the world won't be able to break you. Part 3. He drew strength from solitude with God. Have you ever noticed that the more chaotic life gets, the less time you spend in prayer? The busier we are, the more we rush. And the more we rush, the weaker we feel. But Jesus, he did the opposite. The more pressure he faced, the more he withdrew. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place, where he prayed. Mark 1:35. Now pause. He had just performed miracles. He had just healed crowds of people. Everyone was looking for him. The momentum was strong. The fame was rising. And what did he do? He disappeared to pray. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Jesus understood what most of us forget. You can't pour out if you never fill up. He didn't live from adrenaline. He lived from intimacy. He didn't just know about the Father, he walked with the Father. Think about this. The Son of God, the one who created the universe, still felt the need to stop everything and be alone with his Father. How much more do you and I need it? Over and over, we see this pattern. After feeding thousands, he withdrew. Before choosing the 12 disciples, he prayed all night. After healing crowds, he escaped to a mountain. Before going to the cross, he wrestled in Gethsemane. Jesus didn't treat prayer as a backup plan. It was the lifeblood of his strength. He didn't use God like a vending machine just coming when he needed something. He came because he wanted God. He longed for that connection. It was his secret place, his safe place, his source of power. That's why he didn't break. Because even when the world pulled at him from every direction, he was anchored in the quiet. He was rooted in the presence. He was held by the Father. You and I break down because we try to carry spiritual battles with human strength. We try to love people on empty tanks. We try to resist temptation without fire in our hearts. But Jesus shows us, strength isn't about doing more. It's about connecting deeper. It's not about having the right strategy. It's about having the right source. Friend, when's the last time you pulled away? Not to scroll your phone, not to binge a show, not to catch up on work, but just to be alone with God. We don't need more noise. We need stillness. We don't need more opinions. We need to hear the whisper of the Father, because there are some things you'll never get in the crowd. There are some burdens that can only be lifted in solitude. There is a strength that only comes when no one's watching, when it's just you and God. Jesus knew that. That's why he could face betrayal with peace. That's why he could stand silent before Pilate. That's why he didn't snap when his disciples failed him, because he had already won the battle in private before facing it in public. He wasn't reacting. He was rooted. And the same can be true for you. You don't have to live drained. You don't have to live reactive, anxious, overwhelmed. You were made for communion. Not just belief in God, but intimacy with him. Jesus died not just to forgive your sin, but to bring you into relationship, deep, daily, soul-sustaining relationship. So go to the secret place, not because it's your duty, but because it's your lifeline. God is not hiding from you. He's waiting. He's ready to speak peace over your chaos, strength over your weakness, and courage over your fear. You don't need to carry this alone. You need what Jesus had, solitude with the Father. That's where unbreakable strength is born. Part 4. He trusted God's timing, even in suffering. What do you do when God doesn't move as fast as you hoped? What do you do when the pain lingers longer than you expected and the breakthrough feels delayed? For most of us, waiting is one of the hardest tests of faith. And in that waiting, we all fall apart. But not Jesus. Jesus never broke, because he trusted the timing of heaven, even when it hurt. He didn't rush to defend himself when accused. He didn't chase attention when people misunderstood him. He didn't demand a shortcut to glory. Instead, he lived by this simple yet powerful truth: my time has not yet come. John 2:4. Do you realize how many times he said that? Again and again, Jesus held himself back from moving ahead of the Father's plan. He could have gone public sooner. He could have exposed Judas earlier. He could have called down angels at his arrest. He could have turned the cross into a throne on his timeline. But he didn't. Why? Because he trusted that God's timing wasn't just wise, it was perfect. And let's be honest, trusting God's plan is easy when everything is working out. But what about when it's not? What about when you're suffering? In the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus faced that exact moment. His soul was overwhelmed. His sweat turned to blood. The weight of the world was crushing him. And yet, even in the agony, he didn't ask for a delay in destiny. Not my will, but yours be done. Luke 22:42. That prayer takes supernatural trust. Because to say your will be done while pain surrounds you means you believe something deeper, that even suffering can be sacred in God's hands. Jesus could have broken in that moment, but he didn't. Because he knew God wasn't late. The cross wasn't an accident. The silence of heaven wasn't absence, it was purpose. Friend, hear me. Some of the greatest breakdowns happen not because we're weak, but because we try to force things outside of God's timing. We rush, we panic, we doubt. We try to take matters into our own hands. And when it doesn't work, we collapse. But Jesus shows us a better way. Wait in trust, not in fear. Because sometimes, the waiting is the work. Sometimes your greatest strength is not found in what you do, but in what you're willing to endure without giving up. If Jesus trusted God's timing in the dark, so can you. He waited 30 years before performing a single miracle. He waited through rejection. He waited when others ran ahead. He waited when the disciples still didn't get it. And he trusted the Father to raise him up, not just on the cross, but from the grave. Let that sink in. Jesus died in trust. He gave his last breath saying, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Luke 23:46. Not into the hands of fate, not into the hands of men, but into the hands of a perfect, sovereign, good Father, even when it looked like evil had won. And 3 days later, heaven proved, God is never late. You may be in a season where you don't see the answer, where the road is silent, the breakthrough feels far, the suffering feels heavy. But if you're in God's hands, you're right on time. So stop measuring your life by how fast things change. Start measuring it by how faithful God is to finish what he starts. The strength of Jesus wasn't just in what he endured, but in how he endured it with trust, not panic. You can trust him too. Even in the waiting, even in the heartbreak, even in the silence. Because if God raised Jesus at the perfect time, he knows exactly when to raise you. Part 5. He loved when it hurt the most. Let's be honest. It's easy to love people when they're kind to you, when they celebrate you, when they have your back. But what about when they stab you in it? What about when they betray you, abandon you, humiliate you, publicly, painfully, without remorse? Most people break in those moments. They shut down, turn bitter, lash out, or walk away. But not Jesus. Jesus never broke, because he loved even when it hurt the most. And not just with words, with action, with blood, with tears. Think about what he endured. Judas, one of his own disciples, sold him for silver. Peter, who swore he'd die for him, denied him 3 times. His closest friends fell asleep while he wept in Gethsemane. The crowd he healed and fed cried out, "Crucify him." Soldiers beat him, mocked him. Religious leaders slandered him with lies. And how did Jesus respond? "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Luke 23:34. Do you realize what kind of strength it takes to say that, while hanging on a cross, he wasn't loving people who repented? He wasn't loving people who were sorry. He was loving his enemies while they were actively killing him. That's not soft. That's not weak. That's supernatural power. The kind of love Jesus showed is the kind of love that shatters darkness. It's the kind that breaks generational hatred. The kind that makes hell tremble. And that's why he didn't break. Because hatred corrodes the soul, but love protects it. Jesus refused to let the poison of bitterness enter his heart. He didn't carry resentment. He didn't carry revenge. He carried a cross, and he carried. You see, most of us carry what people did to us. We replay it. We relive it. We rehearse it. But Jesus released it. He didn't love because people earned it. He loved because he was loved. And friend, here's where it hits home. If you try to walk through life without love, you'll break under the weight of betrayal. You'll collapse under the pain of being misunderstood. You'll snap under the burden of carrying old wounds. But when you choose to love like Jesus, even when it hurts, you gain a strength the world cannot understand. Love is not weakness. Love is it's how you fight back against the darkness trying to consume your heart. And yes, it's costly. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean saying what they did was okay. It means you're done letting it control you. Jesus didn't pretend the cross didn't hurt. He just refused to let it define how he loved. You can too. Think of the people who wounded you, the ones who let you down, the ones who never apologized, the ones you keep trying to forget. What if the greatest act of strength isn't revenge, but mercy? What if the strongest thing you can do is love, not with naive trust, but with supernatural grace? Jesus didn't love because it was easy. He loved because he was filled with the Spirit of the Father, and that Spirit now lives in you. You don't have to keep carrying anger like armor. You don't have to keep building walls to protect a broken heart. God's love isn't fragile, it's a fortress. The Bible says, love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. 1 Corinthians 13:7-8. That's what held Jesus together. That's what kept him from breaking. And that same love, strong, fearless, eternal, is yours in Christ. So forgive, release, love, not because they deserve it, but because you were never created to carry bitterness. You were created to carry the love of the one who bled for the people who nailed him to a tree. And if he could do that, you can love too. Part 6. He refused to carry what wasn't his. Have you ever felt like the weight you're carrying is too much? Like life has stacked burdens on your shoulders that don't belong there. Responsibilities, regrets, guilt, pressure from others, pressure from yourself. That's one of the quickest ways people break. Not because they're weak, but because they're carrying what God never asked them to carry. But Jesus, he refused to carry what wasn't his. He had every opportunity to take on false burdens, expectations, misplaced guilt, emotional manipulation. But he didn't. He only carried what the Father gave him. Nothing more. Nothing less. Think about it. He didn't carry the expectations of the crowd. He didn't carry the need to explain himself to the Pharisees. He didn't carry the anxiety of whether people would approve of him. He didn't even carry the guilt of those who rejected him. He was laser-focused on doing the will of the Father and letting go of everything else. I have come down from heaven not to do my will, but to do the will of him who sent me. John 6:38. That was his filter. If it wasn't from the Father, it didn't belong on his back. And that's why he didn't break, because unnecessary burdens are soul-crushing. Jesus could have taken on the emotional responsibility of saving everyone who rejected him. He could have spiraled when the rich young ruler walked away. He could have taken personal offense when entire towns rejected his message. But he didn't. Because Jesus understood something most of us forget. You are not responsible for outcomes. You are responsible for obedience. That truth alone can set you free. Too many of us are breaking under the weight of things we were never created to carry. The choices of other people, the salvation of someone we love, the expectations of family or culture, the guilt of a past that's already forgiven, the future we can't control. But Jesus didn't carry those weights. He carried the cross. And even that, he surrendered into the Father's hands. When he breathed his last breath, he said, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." Luke 23:46. Not I'll figure it out myself. Not I'll carry this to the grave. But I trust you with everything I am. That's freedom. That's power. That's strength. Jesus didn't break because he knew what to carry and what to release. What about you? What burdens have you picked up that aren't from God? Whose expectations are shaping your decisions? What guilt are you still dragging around? What fear are you holding that was never yours to manage? Friend, you can be responsible without being wrecked. You can care without being crushed. You can love people without trying to save them yourself. The Bible says, "Cast your cares on the Lord and he will sustain you." Psalm 55:22. Did you catch that? He will sustain you. Not your own strength. Not your own understanding. Not your own control. You were never meant to carry the weight of the world. Jesus already did that for you. So lay it down. The pressure to fix everyone. The fear of the future. The crushing guilt of yesterday. Let go of what's not yours to carry. Pick up what God has actually called you to. His yoke. His peace. His strength. Jesus said, "My yoke is easy, and my burden is light." Matthew 11:30. That's not poetic. That's a promise. If what you're carrying is breaking you, it's not from him. The strength of Jesus came not just from what he endured, but from what he released. So give it to God, all of it, and watch how much lighter your soul becomes. Part 7. He saw through heaven's eyes. What if your pain isn't the end of the story? What if the thing that's trying to break you right now is actually part of something bigger, something holy, something eternal? That's how Jesus lived. He didn't just see what was in front of him. He saw through it. He saw betrayal, but beyond it, he saw redemption. He saw the cross, but beyond it, he saw the resurrection. He saw temporary agony, but beyond it, he saw eternal glory. And that's why he didn't break. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross. Hebrews 12:2. Let that sink in. He didn't endure because he enjoyed suffering. He endured because he saw something beyond the suffering. He had heaven's vision. He wasn't trapped in the moment. He was anchored in eternity. Jesus understood something most of us struggle with. Earth is temporary. Eternity is forever. Every wound, every injustice, every tear, none of it would have the final word. The Father would. And so Jesus moved through the worst pain a human being could experience, not by escaping it, but by seeing past it. He looked at the mocking crowds and saw future worshipers. He looked at the torn flesh on his back and saw the healing of our souls. He looked at the darkness of Friday and saw the light of Sunday. That's how you keep going when everything inside wants to give up. You lift your eyes. Friend, maybe the reason you feel like breaking isn't because your faith is weak. It's because your focus is too low. You're staring at the loss. You're staring at the debt. You're staring at the failure. You're staring at the betrayal. You're staring at the grave. But what if you looked higher? What if you saw the bigger picture? What if you remembered that this isn't forever? Yes, it hurts now. Yes, it's real. Jesus never denied that. He wept. He groaned. He bled. But he never let pain blind him to what was coming next. He said, "In this world you will have trouble. But take heart. I have overcome the world." John 16:33. Take heart. Why? Because this world is not the end. Because your suffering is not wasted. Because your story doesn't end in darkness. It ends in glory, if you're walking with him. Jesus didn't just endure the cross. He saw through the cross. And what he saw gave him strength to stay the course. Let me ask you, what do you see right now? Is your vision filled with failure, fear, and frustration? Or are your eyes locked on the God who promises resurrection after death, beauty after ashes, joy after mourning? Faith isn't just believing God exists. Faith is seeing life through heaven's eyes. When you do that, your enemies don't look so powerful. Your trials don't look so final. Your burdens don't look so heavy. You realize, this isn't pointless. This isn't the end. This is part of the plan. You see what Jesus saw, joy ahead. So don't quit now. Don't collapse under the weight of what's temporary. The pain you're feeling is not permanent. The night you're walking through has a sunrise coming. You are not abandoned. You are not forgotten. You are not finished. Keep your eyes up, not on what's seen, but on what's unseen, because that's where real strength lives. Jesus walked through hell on earth, but he kept going because he knew heaven was next. And friends, so will you. Part 8, he gave everything and held nothing back. Let's get real. Most people don't break down because they're weak. They break down because they're holding back, trying to protect themselves, trying to stay in control, trying to live with one foot in and one foot out. But Jesus didn't live like that. He held nothing back. From the moment he stepped onto the scene to the final breath on the cross, he gave everything, every ounce of strength, every drop of blood, every heartbeat, every word, every tear, poured out like a drink offering. He didn't die with energy in reserve. He didn't save himself a safety net. He didn't quit halfway. When he went to the cross, he gave his all. And his final words, "It is finished," John 19:30. Not "I'm finished." Not "this is the end." But the mission, the sacrifice, the redemption, the obedience, it is finished. He didn't hold back because he wasn't trying to survive. He was here to complete a mission and nothing would stop him. That's why he didn't break. Because when your life is fully surrendered to God, nothing can fracture your soul. Think about it. What actually breaks us? It's not just the pressure of life. It's the tug of war inside us, the fear of letting go. We want God to lead us, but we still want control. We want healing, but we won't expose the wound. We want peace, but we won't release our plans. And so we live half given, half obedient, half trust, but half surrender is a guaranteed breakdown. Jesus didn't live like that. He wasn't trying to save himself. He was trying to save you. He wasn't clinging to reputation. He wasn't worried about safety. He didn't negotiate with fear. He said, "Whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for my sake will find it." Matthew 16:25. That wasn't just a teaching. That was how he lived. He gave his life, and in doing so, he conquered death. He gave his body, and in doing so, he purchased our healing. He gave his will, and in doing so, he fulfilled the Father's plan. And that's the invitation for you too. You want to walk in strength like Jesus? Then stop holding back. Stop waiting until it's easy. Stop protecting pieces of yourself from God. He's not looking for perfection. He's looking for surrender. Because full surrender unlocks supernatural strength. You may think you're staying safe by holding back, but you're actually staying stuck. The peace you're looking for, it's on the other side of total surrender. The healing you're longing for, it's just past that final relief. Jesus didn't partially obey. He obeyed unto death, even death on a cross. And because he gave everything, he gained everything. The Bible says, "Therefore God exalted him to the highest place and gave him the name that is above every name." Philippians 2:9. Strength wasn't just found in his endurance, it was found in his sacrifice. He poured himself out completely, and heaven filled him with glory. What if the breakthrough you've been praying for isn't coming because you're still holding on to something God asked you to let go? What if the strength you're begging for is waiting on the other side of surrender? Let it go. That fear, that pride, That habit, that secret, that plan you made without him. Lay it all down. Say what Jesus said, not my will, but yours be done. That's not a weak prayer. That's the strongest sentence a human soul can speak. Because when you hold nothing back, hell has nothing to grip. That's why Jesus never broke. Because he was already broken and poured out for us, and in that full surrender he walked in unshakable strength. You can too. Conclusion. So now you've seen it. Jesus didn't walk through life untouched by pain. He wasn't immune to betrayal, suffering, or grief. But he never broke, because he was rooted in something deeper than this world could touch. He knew who he was. He knew why he came. He stayed connected to the Father. He trusted God's timing. He loved when it hurt. He refused to carry what wasn't his. He saw through heaven's eyes, and he gave everything, holding nothing back. That's the secret strength of Jesus. And here's the miracle: that same strength is available to you. Right now you may feel exhausted. You may feel cracked. You may be carrying guilt, confusion, fear, or disappointment. But you don't have to live like that anymore. Jesus didn't just model this strength. He made a way for you to walk in it. Through his Spirit, through his presence, through his word. You don't have to be strong in yourself. You just have to stay connected to the one who is. So let the world shake. Let the trials come. Let the storms rage. You don't have to break, because the same God who upheld Jesus will uphold you. Now to him who is able to keep you from falling. Jude 1:24. That's your promise. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. You are not powerless. You are held by the same hands that carried the cross, and those hands will never let go of you. So breathe. Stand up, lift your eyes, and walk in the strength of the one who never broke. God bless you, and may his strength be made perfect in your weakness today and every day.